Guys, this is Scribbly again with another pen review, and today we are having something rather interesting right here, the Montblanc M, which is a super interesting piece of design. Normally it's more that kind of pen that you're used to from Montblanc, apart from all the special and writer's edition obviously. And the M is a pretty unique design take by Montblanc. Before we hop into the review, I wanna say thank you very much to Joost at appelboompennen.com in the Netherlands, who enabled this review right here. Before we look at the pen, let's look at the packaging quickly. It's the typical Montblanc sort of like chamois off-white packaging with the Montblanc logo on right here. No surprises there. We then do have the sort of like Montblanc packaging right here with the structured surface, Montblanc logo right here. Pen then rests in here. F, it's a fine nib. Guys, this is pretty much the same minimalist, elegant and cool packaging in my opinion that you will find with all the, you know, Meisterstück 146 pens. And then you have a service guide, warranty, and as said, this pen here, the pen review, coming from appelboom.com, Joost. Thanks a lot for shipping this one over. Let's look at the pen. I mean, it's a very eye-catching piece of design. The Montblanc M is designed by I think it's an Australian designer called Mark Newson. It's an industrial designer. I do believe he also works for Apple, or at least he has worked for Apple, and I think sort of like the Apple-ish references on these pens, you know, if you look at the Apple Magic Mouse for instance, you know, it does look very Apple-ish, at least in my opinion. Pretty much very similar design language. The Montblanc MM stands at the same time for Mark Newson, but then also for Montblanc. And well, it's like a cigar-shaped pen, if you may say so, that has a plateau right here at the end of it. Very eye-catchy. We'll look at it in a second in more detail, but that's basically the overall size of the pen, shape of the pen, obviously, the design. Let's cover this pen from top to bottom. First, the material that the pen is made of is precious resin. It's the same material that the Meisterstücks are made of. So if I compare those two, it's pretty much the same material. If I bring it up close to my eye, I cannot really spot the difference. Initially I thought this is maybe a bit of a darker black on the M, but I do think that that is actually not the case. I think it's pretty much the exact same precious resin that the Montblanc M is made of. If you look at the pen from top to bottom, then first of all, you find a very nice snow cap logo on this very nicely rounded cap right here. The cap is rather short. If you look at the overall dimensions, it's a rather short cap in proportion. If you look at the Meisterstück, for instance, you know, the cap almost comes down 50% of the pen, sort of, not exactly, a little bit less. And here, that cap is noticeably shorter. You then have a very nicely looking clip that sort of like looks a little bit Lamy Safari inspired, at least. That's at least what it reminds me of, but it's a very nicely designed clip. I think it's a very unique clip because like it's a clip design that, apart from the Lamy Safari, All-Star, etc., you do not often find on fountain pens. You then have the serial number very minimally engraved in here, as you can see. The clip has a little ball under it. It's not overly tight, not overly springy, just very usable clip. Then you have the cylindrical barrel that does taper down ever so slightly, and then you have this very interesting plateau here, slopes down here very smoothly. I do find that that is like very nice to, you know, just stroke your finger across. This very nice tactile experience because it is so smooth. I find myself, you know, playing with that every now and then in meetings. It's almost like a hand charmer. It's just very satisfying, very nice, and obviously a nice piece of design. And then you do have like the Montblanc snow cap back here once more, and obviously when you then hold the pen, right, and you write with it, then everyone else will see that you have a Montblanc pen right here. So it's kind of displaying the Montblanc logo, whether you're a fan of that or not, but that's what it actually does, right? So then uncapping the pen as a second very nice feature of the pen, apart from the overall very interesting body design, is that it has actually a magnetic snap-on cap. It does not always snap on in place, right? Then you have to help a little bit. That's a small flaw that I found with the pen. In order for it to snap right back in, you need to be a little bit, you gotta help it a little bit with a gentle push. No, not even now. And then you know, sometimes it snaps all the way back in place and sometimes it doesn't, and then you have to help it a little bit, as you can see right here. The interesting thing with this magnetic closure, magnetic closure, is that it does, you know, always align the cap with the logo, or rather the clip with the logo, which is another very interesting and fun design feature. There's not very many pens that do have a magnetic closure. The pen then has like a smaller inner cap to prevent the nib from drying out. I think that has I've never had an issue with this pen drying out, so that works very, very well. You cannot really post this pen, or not really, not at all. I have heard or read on different forums that people somehow have succeeded in posting this pen. I don't know if there were maybe previous versions where there was also a magnet in here so that that would actually stick on there. This version right here, as you can see without a doubt, does obviously not post, but I don't think it's a problem because the pen in my rather large hands, the Pelikan M800 is the perfect pen size for me, or Lamy 2000. I'll do size comparisons in a second. That pen rests in my hand very, very comfortably, very nicely balanced, slightly front heavy because of like a metal section that we look at in a second, and a resin barrel, so slightly front heavy, which I find comfortable because you don't have to exert a lot of pressure. It's a fantastic pen, very nice ergonomic design, lays in hand very, very beautifully. Guys, we then have like a slightly smallish nib, which is a interesting nib design that you normally don't see on Montblanc pens. They normally have like a completely different nib design, you know, that sort of like looks more like something like that. But anyway, I think it's like a very brave and interesting take and design decision. The feed has no fins. It's just like, you know, like a plastic bullet kind of thingy. Then you have a 14K gold nib right here with the Montblanc snow cap logo, the Montblanc logo, and then again an M inside, maybe for Montblanc M or Montblanc or Mark Newson, who knows. Says Montblanc, then also says 585, I think that is for the gold content. As said, it's a 14 karat gold nib, which is rhodium plated and has a ruthenium plated inlay. And then you have a section here as a metal section that also sort of looks ruthenium plated, so fits the ruthenium plated inlay right here very well. This section is sort of riffled right here, which does help it with the grip. Since this is a fairly fine patterning here, I do think it's almost as bad as a plain metal section. Not sure. It does help you a little bit with the grip, but I do personally, and I do have problems with metal sections, like I can't write with a Lamy Studio personally, for instance. I do think that it's still a bit slippery. It's not as bad as a Lamy Studio with this like completely polished, shiny chrome section, but it is a little bit slippery. But like, you know, if you don't have wet hands, or like I tend to get a little bit wettish hands when I'm writing, then you shouldn't have a problem with that. If you do have wettish hands, maybe it's a good thing to try the pen out first. It's a fairly short section, but it's a quite thick section, so it's quite grippy. That's kind of nice. It's a fairly short section with a step up, but the step up does slope down a little bit. So even if it may look uncomfortable, I have found that you actually can hold the pen right up here, which then obviously helps with the grip a little bit because you do grip onto the plastic. And it's actually not uncomfortable to write with like that, even though you have that step down here. But as said, since it does slope down a little bit, it's not a sharp step down, so you can actually hold the pen right here as well. Well, and then as said, this is black, it's ruthenium plated, I think, and says Montblanc all the way around here. One little catch with that section, like you see, it does have some blue-black ink caught in here. I have dipped it a little bit too far into the ink bottle when I was inking this pen up here, so then it caught a little bit blue-black ink in between here, and that's kind of tricky to get off, because like these gaps here are so small. So when you do that with a paper towel, when you try to wipe it off, that's what I did, you don't get it off completely. It also doesn't get onto your fingers really, because it seems to be stuck somewhere in there. Probably if you would use a wet wipe or something, you would get it off. But anyway, just thought I'll point that out to you. You can then open the pen. It is a cartridge converter filler. It is not a piston filler. It takes standard international cartridges or converters. However, not all standard international converters do fit. The ones that fit are the online or Kaweco ones, because the way they're sort of constructed back here, they can slide into this like sort of narrower bit here at the back. If you have these, you know, Schmidt converters or something like that, they have a slightly different construction back here. They won't fit. They sort of will get stuck somewhere there. And then, well, you have a saying made in Germany in here, and then yeah, it's like just a metal section. And the pen is inked with a Diamine Blue Black, which is one of my standard review inks. Let me do a quick size comparison first to my standard size reference pen, and then to a Montblanc 146, because maybe if you have a Montblanc 46 already, you consider extending your Montblanc collection. And guys, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Lamy Safari and the Montblanc M are pretty much the exact same size when they're capped, and when they're uncapped, the picture won't change much. There's, you know, there's like a 3mm difference between those two pens. Not a very, or maybe even only 2mm. It's as a matter of fact not a very substantial size difference. You see the nibs are pretty much the same size. So the Montblanc one is a little bit wider. They're both fine nibs, and if you see the comparison right here, you know, this is a Lamy fine, this is a Montblanc fine. That fine here to me is like a good medium. It's definitely not a fine. There's quite some tipping material on here. There's quite some, you know, two fine nibs right here. So that one definitely writes pretty broad. Last but not least, let's do a size comparison to a Meisterstück. That's a 146. So capped, the 146 is like quite a bit longer. And oops, uncapped. That's what it looks like. Pretty much the same size, I would say, you know, pretty much exactly the same length. Section diameter, you know, that's when I meant it's a quite beefy section. I mean, the 146 is not a small section, you know, it's somewhere in between a Pelikan M600, Pelikan M800, around a Lamy 2000, depending on where you grip it. And the Montblanc M, also quite a beefy section. So I would say, you know, if you get along with a Pelikan M600, if you get along with a Lamy 2000, if you like your Meisterstück 146, then you will like that one here as well. And you see, like, you know, the section length is approximately the same. So if you get along with the section length of a Meisterstück, then you will also get along with the section of lengthwise, at least, dimensions. Obviously this is metal, this is resin, of the Montblanc M. Last but not least, let's do a quick writing sample. Let me zoom in a little. Pen comes right up. This writes very beautiful with a hint of feedback. Very nice writing experience, I must say. Montblanc M. Fine nib. as said, writes with a hint of feedback, very nice writing experience. It's a rather short nib, but without pressure and with pressure does actually offer quite a bit of line variation. It's a very nice, springy, bouncy writing experience. Very, very beautiful. It's a pretty wet writer as well. As you can see right here, puts down a lot of dark blue-black ink, or the blue-black ink appears very dark. So that's really, really nice. I have a Montblanc Meisterstück here. That one also has a fine nib. I'll write a line with that. And you see the difference. So I would say that that one here, that Meisterstück here, is a pretty much true to the size fine, whereas the fine of the Montblanc M runs substantially wider and wetter. So I would say this is a pretty wide and wet nib. Guys, at the end of this review, what we need to talk is price. Obviously, this pen costs 440 euro at appelboompennen.com. Obviously, it's not an inexpensive pen. This is a Montblanc, so be prepared to pay a bit of a luxury price. But anyway, you know, the Meisterstück costs 500 euro or 480 euro, something like that. So this pen is sort of like 50 euro less expensive than the Meisterstück. And so I think the price is fair in realms of what, you know, as far as Montblanc goes. And I think it's actually a very, very interesting, brave design decision. You know, if you like your iPhone, if you're an Apple fan, or if you just like modern minimalist design, I guess that pen here is a must-have and as a, you know, pretty cool closing mechanism that you can play with in a boring meeting or something like that. Guys, that was that with that review. In the end, thanks a lot again to Joost at appelboompennen.com in the Netherlands for helping me out with this review. And I'll see you guys at the next review. Ciao, ciao.